Hello everyone. Once upon a time there lived a stone cutter. Every day he went to a big rock on a mountain nearby to cut out slabs for gravestones for the community. He was familiar with the kinds of stones required for different purposes. He was an expert craftsman and had plenty of customers. For a long time he was happy and contented and asked for nothing better than what he had. In the mountain there also lived a spirit which often appeared to men to help them to become rich and prosperous. The stonecutter, however, had never seen this spirit and only shook his head with an unbelieving air when anyone spoke of it. But a future event, however, was about to change his opinion. One day, the stonecutter brought a gravestone to the house of a rich man. He saw there all sorts of beautiful things, which he had never even imagined of. Suddenly, his daily work seemed to grow harder and heavier. He pondered, "Oh, if only I were rich! I could sleep in a bed with the silk curtains and golden tassels. How happy I would be!" Just as he completed his thought, he heard a voice saying, "Your wish is heard. A rich man you shall be." At the sound of the voice, the stonecutter looked around, but could not find anybody. He thought it all to be his fancy. He picked up his tools and went home, as he did not feel inclined to do any more work. When he reached the little house where he lived, he stood still with amazement, because instead of his wooden hut, there stood a beautiful palace filled with splendid furniture, and most superb, dazzling, marvelous of all was the bed, just like the one he earlier envied. He was overwhelmed with the joy and his new life. The old one was soon forgotten. Soon it was summer, and each day the sun blazed more furiously. One morning the heat was so great that the stonecutter could barely breathe and decided to stop at home till the evening. He was rather dull, for he had never learned to amuse himself. He saw through the blinds to see what was going on in the streets. He saw a little carriage passing by, drawn by servants dressed in blue. A prince sat in the carriage with a golden umbrella held over his head to protect him from the sun's rays. Oh, if I were only a prince and travel in such a beautiful carriage with a golden umbrella over me, how happy would I be? Thought the stonecutter as the carriage vanished around the corner. And a prince he was, a company of men dressed in scarlet and gold riding in front and another behind his carriage, with a fashionable umbrella held over his head. Everything his heart desired was his, but yet it was not enough. He saw that despite the water he poured on the grass, the rays of the sun scorched it. In spite of the umbrella held over his head, each day his face grew darker and darker. He cried in the anger and thought, "The sun is mightier than I. Oh, if I were only the sun." The mountain spirit answered, "Your wish is heard. The sun you shall be." And the sun he was, and felt himself proud of his power. He shot his beams above and below on heaven and earth, and scorched the faces of princes and poor common alike. But in a short time he began to grow tired of his might, for there seemed nothing left for him to do. Discontent once again filled his soul. When a cloud covered his face and hid the earth from him, he cried in anger, "Does the cloud captivate my rays and is mightier than I? Oh, if I were only a cloud, mightier than any." The mountain spirit answered, "Your wish is heard. A cloud you shall be." And a cloud he was. He caught the sun's beams and held them. And to his joy, the earth grew green, a cane and flower blossomed. But that was not enough for him, and for days and weeks he poured forth rain, till the rivers overflowed their banks and the crops stood in water. Towns and villages were destroyed by the power of the rain. Only the great rock on the mountain remained unmoved. The cloud was amazed at the sight and cried in wonder, "Is the rock then mightier than I? If I could only be that rock." The mountain spirit answered, "Your wish is heard, and the rock you shall be." And the rock he was, and gloried in his power. Proudly he stood. Neither the heat of the sun nor the force of his rain could move him. "This is better than all," he said to himself. But one day he heard a strange noise at his feet. He looked down to see what it could be. He saw a stone cutter driving tools into his surface. He cried in despair, "Is a mere child of the earth mightier than a rock? Oh, if I were only a man!" And once again the mountain spirit answered, "Your wish is heard, a man once more you shall be." A man he was, and with the sweat on his brow, he toiled again in his trade of stone cutting. His bed was hard, but he had learned to be satisfied with it. He did not long to be something or somebody else. He did not ask for things he did not have, or desire to be greater and mightier than other people. He was happy at last and never again heard the voice of the mountain spirit. Friends, it is not important what we have. What important is what we do with the things we have. There will be someone richer or powerful than us, but at the same time, someone will be poorer or weaker than us. If we keep comparing ourselves to others, we will only worry and keep on thinking, what if we are never contented in our life? Always remember, aim for the stars, but keep our feet on the ground and keep in mind who we are and who we want to be. Friends, we should never hear the voice of the mountain spirits ever. And most important, don't seek to have resources, but instead be resourceful. Thank you, everyone. This is Shallu's Corner. Thanks for watching. Keep spreading happiness and smile 24 hours.